Welcome to the Unboxing the Office podcast, episode number 2. Very excited to have you back. Almost as excited as I am about today's guest. Health, our national health, is at the forefront of the national dialogue. That's why today we sought out and we brought forth a senior executive in the areas of food service management, workforce development, and corporate strategy, an individual who has worked with United Airlines and the Polaris lounges, helping to launch the C-stores on the run at ExxonMobil, as well started out as an executive chef at Marriott. John Gimesh, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bernie. Thank you so much. I'm also excited and glad to be here.
Yes. But first, a word from our sponsors. Hot Logic, the alternative to the microwave in the vending break room, as well as the corporate break room. Set you free from the bondage of that infernal machine. Unleash your team's productivity. Hot Logic, built right in Grand Haven, Michigan. Now back to the program. John Gimesh, I'm so excited to have you here. We've got a lot of ground to cover.
Lots of ground.
National health. It's in the news. It's everywhere. We were talking about this last night. Our national food systems are broken. If we cannot fix them, we cannot address the health and wellness crisis that we have in this nation. Of course, you've had your own journey of health and wellness. These past 25 years, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot, but I can't help myself. Can you tell us about your journey?
I can. You say national health crisis, and I like to think of a personal health crisis. So, I don't think I'm that different from anybody. I love to eat.
Yes. Praise Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Food's the one thing that we all have in common across the earth and brings us together, and we love to eat. And I just love to eat. So I was brought up to eat. I love pizza. I love everything.
Samesies.
I mean, everything. I used to go to buffets and eat and fill up as much as I could. At school, we had to clear our plates. We couldn't bring the tray back empty.
That's
you were
how
told
we were
to
raised.
eat it.
Yes.
Everything I was told I did. Who would have thought, first of all, before I tell you about my journey and how I went from a normal child to I hate to use this word because it makes my skin crawl, a fat, obese person that needed an extender on an airplane.
Wow. Yeah.
That my feet hurt so bad I couldn't walk. Who would have thought in 1956, our government said that bread was one of the 4 food groups.
Yes. The food pyramid.
Told us to eat as much bread as fruits and vegetables.
Fact.
Pizza had a lot of bread in it too, right? So I did. I ate it. Anyway, so I, like many people, wanted to become a chef. Went to culinary school. My dad made me continue in school. After I got my culinary degree, I went on and got my master's degree. I cooked in Israel. You didn't know that.
Wow.
I cooked on a kibbutz. Yes.
On a kibbutz.
On a kibbutz. I cooked in Budapest, right there. Now it's the Intercontinental Hotel. I became a regional chef for the Southeast. And all I did was eat. I had to test the food, had to get in the kitchen. And food hits what? Your visual. You smell it and you crave it. And I slowly started gaining weight.
Yeah.
And then, it started in college and culinary school. What could I afford? Everyone's going to laugh. In college, what do we eat? Ramen noodles.
Yes.
Who would have known they were so bad for me?
Yes.
Who would have known ramen noodles
were
so bad? So anyway, I did what everybody else did. We ate ramen noodles and pizza. But now I'm eating fancier food. And, and I would have to test food, taste food for the region. I'd eat it. And now I'd go home and I didn't know that I was addicted. And the TV would come on and you watch a commercial and the commercial would say subliminally to me, "You're hungry. Get up and go eat whatever's in the refrigerator." Yes. And I'd get up and I'd go eat. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd eat. I was addicted to food. I had a food issue. Wow. So now I'm 200 pounds, 250 pounds. Okay, that's good. I'm just going to do what everybody else does. Get on a diet, lose some weight, not do it. And it's so hard. You got to have willpower. Push away from that table.
Yes.
Whatever the diet was, I was on it. I lose 10 pounds, I'd gain 15 back. Now I'm 300 pounds. Damn, I got no willpower. What's wrong with me?
Right.
Who wants to be with a fat guy?
Right.
Weak willpower. You know how hard it is to get a promotion when you're 300 pounds?
Wow.
You ever gone to buy clothes at 300 pounds?
Right.
You got to go to the big boy store. I looked good, though.
Of course.
I had a little more hair back then. Anyway, so 350, 360, 360 pounds of love.
360 pounds.
So I had to do what I had to do. Get a stomach staple. That's what it was kind of called. Sure. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't popular. It was around 2000, 2001. And I went in. There was no training, no anything. You just went in. They did it. They released me 2 days later. I had to go all the way to Greenville from Charlotte, North Carolina. I came home and I'm sick and I'm all white. And everyone's like, get up, get up, get up. And I'm white. And I'm having complications because I'm bleeding. They didn't even check me for an ulcer back then.
Wow.
So I go back to hospital. I'm in there for almost a month. Now I'm released. And, man, I'm losing weight. And it's so simple. I lose all this weight. And then, you know what starts happening? I start gaining it back.
Sure.
Because I'm still addicted to the food. It was just a shot in the arm.
Yeah.
And this journey, and I'll pause and let you ask me some more questions. But, I mean, this journey has continued ever since. I still, right this moment, I'm 20 pounds overweight. I fight this every single day of my life. Because I'm still addicted to food. When I sell it, see it, when I sell it too, when I see it, when I smell it, I still want it. I crave it.
Wow.
And it's when you go to the store, what's good for me? I know we're going to talk about that later on. I don't even know. I don't even know what's good for me. And we'll talk about that a little later on. But, exercise, do this, do that. Don't eat, drink water, run. You ever seen a 350-pound man running down the road? No, Anyway, so this is a real journey. And it's something you would never, ever wish your children.
No.
And why is it that so many more people are in that boat? They're sinking the boat as much as we weigh. And I feel bad for people that are that way. And that's really why I'm here. But, so it's a journey I can empathize with. And then I can sympathize on the other side because I sold the products. I set it up. I set up the merchandising. Do you know, and I didn't tell you this, but earlier on when I was working for Marriott, I just thought of this. I would in the Bell South headquarters in Atlanta. Now, Bell South is out of business.
Sure. AT&T.
Yeah, now it's AT&T. But I would get like smoke from a like a little thing and light it there on the third floor of the Campanile building and make the building smell like barbecue smoke. Kind of like when you smell popcorn, it makes you hungry. Sure. And I would release that smoke. And the building maintenance didn't like this. But to make people smell barbecue up in their offices.
Right.
So they would come down to the cafe and eat the barbecue I was selling.
The smoke didn't come from the food. It was
artificially
all generated.
Manipulation, right? Because that was a tip I was received. If you can make people smell food, they'll buy more food.
Right. That's the business.
That was the business. Like when and the example was, when you smell popcorn, you go to the movies, you want to eat it.
Yes.
And you won't stop eating it.
Yes.
Ever. Anyway, so no, that was a personal journey. And I know I ramble on it and I can't help it. And normally I'm embarrassed to share the story because we look at people that are overweight as weak and disgusting and weak and uneducated.
It's not right.
Because they have an addiction. Like, look at you. You're trim, fit. You don't understand. You know, it's an addiction. And like,
Yes.
and I'll just barely touch this, but how hard is it to fight an addiction? Well,
It's hard.
yeah. And if you've never had an addiction to drugs,
Yeah.
alcohol,
Sure.
maybe you don't understand what it's like to fight an addiction. But I'll ask all your listeners. Whoops. Hope that's okay. But I'll ask all the listeners, have you ever had an addiction? Now, I'll tell you this. Before we started this, they made me put my cell phone over there on the table. How many of you are addicted to your cell phones?
Sure. Yes.
How many of you can put your cell phone down for the day and not look at it?
A whole day.
A whole day.
Madness. John, what are you talking about?
So feel that feeling for the addiction of your cell phone. Now imagine if it was food and your TV was showing you that, or you could smell it. Now relate it to your cell phone. Yeah. Anyway, are you addicted to your cell phone? I see it right next to you.
Yeah, I snuck mine in.
I see it.
It never leaves my side. I'm here to say, my name is Bernie Youngblood, and I'm addicted to my cell phone. Step one. I'm on the path. We'll talk, but that'll be another podcast.
Okay.
We're gonna do that another
cell phone
time.
Addiction.
So if I might ask, about how much do you weigh now?
I weigh about, I think this morning it was like 195.
So you're almost half the weight you were. Almost half. It's almost like there was two of you, and now there's one. That is incredible. What do you owe addiction? And yes, it's been an incredible fight, the fight of your life. But if you were to put your finger on it, to what do you owe the success of beating that addiction so far? The journey, the fight will never end, but so far, to what do you owe the success of that?
I mean, for me, everybody has to have their own, vision of inspiration. And when I try, and sometimes I block it out when I open that refrigerator door, but I try to think of, and this is going to sound so corny, but I try to think of my family and the people I love. Like, I see my daughters, Wendy and Katerina, and I see their faces. And I see their faces looking down on me in my casket.
Wow.
Because I couldn't change how much, and how I lived. And I controlled that.
Has this had an impact on their lives? On your daughters? To witness this transformation?
I've probably shared more here than I have with them, because I told you this is not a comfortable topic. I normally don't talk about it.
No.
I really can't believe I'm talking about it right now. I mean, I'll tell people, oh yeah, I used to weigh a lot, push away, and I give little tips to other people that are overweight. But, it's like a one-on-one. I've never, like publicly shared so much, but I'm sharing my story.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story. And what is also so significant about this journey is the fact that you worked in the business. You prepared the food, you served the food, you optimized the systems, you hired, you fired, you built these systems, literally. Hotels, airports, even prison systems, right? Concessions, vending, cafeteria, dining, from start to finish. You were there all the while. I have to ask, in the work that you did those folks know what they were doing? Was this just the profit motive, or was there something more? How did we get to where we're at?
How did we get to where we're at? I guess you have to ask yourself, what did you know and when? I mean, and this is going to be funny, but or serious, but I think about some of the first nutritional information I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, you mind if I talk about eggs for a minute?
Oh, let's do it. I'm here for it.
You like talking about eggs. There's so much talk about eggs on the internet and the news and all that. But, first thing I'm going to tell you right now is we're not going to get political. Health is not a political topic.
It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. And I will not ever make it political. But let's talk about eggs. So I was a young boy when I first got my first nutritional advice. And it was from a movie. And I can still hear the music. Dun, 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 dun. And Rocky wakes up early in the morning.
Yes.
And he's just starting to get in shape. And he opens the refrigerator. And the coolest thing I ever seen as a little boy, he takes the eggs and cracks them into a jar with one hand.
Yes.
4 eggs, I think, or 6, whatever the number was. And he drinks them. People don't know why he drank those eggs. Was it to show that he was tough, or was it a source of protein? But that's how he started. And I can't tell you how many times my friends and I tried to crack those eggs.
Right.
And we drank those eggs. But you look at the journey of eggs. Eggs in food.
Yes.
What do we really know about eggs? So the eggs, and I've told this story a million times, so if you know me, take a break for 2 minutes because you've heard this one. The chef hat, right?
I've not heard this story.
You've not heard this story, but the chef hat's called a toque, right?
Sure.
La toque blanc, the white hat, the chef hat. And it's got all those folds in it, and there might be some argument on the number of folds, but I'm going to say 120, 121. And they say in the old days that represented the different ways to cook an egg.
Wow.
And as you moved up in the kitchen, you got one more fold on your hat because you learned different ways to cook an egg. Now, I know if the listeners were here in this room, here in Franklin, Tennessee, they'd say, John, tell us the ways to cook an egg. And I'd say, well, when you learn them, you become the executive chef. But if you really think about it, it's kind of cool. The egg has been around for a while. And, so eggs were good for breakfast. We ate eggs as a society.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden, eggs were bad.
Yes.
Eggs had high cholesterol.
Yes. That's what we were told.
We were told don't eat the yolk.
Right.
Now, my mom liked the deviled egg, but we didn't like to eat those anymore. Don't eat the yolk, just eat the white.
Yolk bad.
Yeah, now we were just eating egg white omelets.
Right.
Now, in our kitchens, we would take the whole egg, and I don't know, we'd take many, many dozens.
This is in the commercial kitchen.
Commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
Real kitchen. The real kitchens.
Yeah, right.
And I'd put them in a big colander, and I'd put it on the mixer, and we would mix the eggshells and the eggs to crack them and let the eggs drip down into the bowl.
Okay.
That's how we made scrambled eggs early in the morning.
Wow.
But they said, that's unsafe because there's salmonella now on the shelf.
Right, of course.
So now we're buying liquid eggs.
Yes.
And that just has a little bit of chemical to kill the salmonella. That's the only reason we're buying it liquid now. So, and I may have gotten this out of order. Then we went to egg whites. And then all of a sudden, eggs are now good for you again.
Right. Full circle. Who knew?
And now you don't want to order eggs at restaurants because they're cooking it in oil. Just like the oil story, We used to use beef oil.
Yes.
Tallow. They named it tallow oil.
Yep.
It's fancy. And now, we went to vegetables. So what do you even do? I don't even know. Nobody really even
now it's
knows.
Olive oil, John.
Olive oil,
Extra
avocado
virgin olive
oil. How about the old coconut?
Oh, right.
You got to put the lime in the coconut,
Yes.
right?
Eat it all up. Yes.
And so when you look at the eggs, wow, the eggs have really, really made a full circle, and there's so much talk about the egg. It can be refrigerated. They ultra pasteurize it. There's just so much our government's done to the egg.
Cage-free.
Cage-free
Pasture
egg.
raised. Vegan.
What's that mean? That they're cage-free, but there's 2 million of them in one little room? I don't know.
There's a little tiny door.
I just don't know what's really going on about the egg.
Yes.
Do you have to really refrigerate it? Yes, no. I don't know. And so there's just so much talk about the eggs. It keeps going back and forth. I like a good egg.
And they don't teach this stuff in schools.
I don't even know where you learn it now.
No.
I know what Rocky did.
Right.
And look how he looked in Rocky 3.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But our egg journey was decades in the making, right? And now that RFK Jr., right, is working, doing what he has worked his entire life, right, what he set out to do. The next 2 years, 4 years, we're going to see some dramatic changes. But it took us decades to learn what to do with these eggs, and we're still not sure. What do you see as the trajectory for the changes that RFK Jr. is making?
We can look at the changes he's making, and once again, I don't ever want to get political when we talk about health to large numbers of people, or speak about a company or companies.
Sure.
Because we as the consumers are the ones that really control what people do.
We make our own choices.
We make our choices and we buy, and they produce, we ultimately control that kind of stuff, it's consumer demand. But, the dyes, I don't know. He's getting rid of the dyes, the red dyes. Did we like it to be bright and colorful? Do we want these things? Do we have expectations that there's every type of produce in our grocery store every time we walk in, that the farmers and the companies have to produce those things, that we would be disappointed if we walked in and they said, oh, look, there's no Brussels sprouts, which actually are really good for you, good source. But when you look at, stuff and you look at, let's go back to eggs and chicken and meat and everything, and you look at, let's say, IGF-1.
Okay.
It's like a growth hormone, right?
Sure.
The weightlifters used it for a while until they made it illegal because it was killing them.
Right. Wow.
But now they give it to animals.
The same drug.
I don't know if it's the exact same drug, but the same exact drug.
Now we're feeding it to the animals.
And I think this started in the 90s, and I think maybe, don't quote me exactly on anything if you're out there making notes, but I'm pretty close. Google it. I like to say, Google it, y'all. Google it. And because, all the truth is there. But I think, it came out in the 90s, and maybe Harvard came out with some research in 99 or something that it's bad for us. But it didn't become really well known that this hormone's bad, and the hormone makes cows make milk all the time, even when they shouldn't be in the milk making cycle.
Is that good?
And I don't know.
And we're drinking that milk.
Yeah, and then it makes the chickens grow faster, lay more eggs, love those eggs again, and it makes the beef cows and stuff grow a lot faster than they normally do because, hey, we got to make money. And is there anything wrong with that? Because if you worked for that company, did you know when you found that chemical that it would do this or that or this or that? Probably not. I hope not, whatever. But it made the cow make twice as much meat, twice as fast, and it came back to the bottom line faster.
And the same thing can be said for vegetables with pesticides and GMO.
The whole thing.
So our industrial food system is engineered by a profit motive, which, for good or bad reason, that's just what we have.
Is it just that? Like, I remember I was in New Mexico doing the food for Intel. And it was change of the, 1999, right? Prince was real popular. That song came back. Everybody thought everything was going to end, The vending machines.
Sure.
Everything's going to flip over.
We're going to talk about the vending market.
Yeah, the micro market, vending market, and all that kind of stuff, But and so I was doing the food service for Intel and landscaping and all that kind of stuff and the janitorial. And I had just presented my yearly price increase for the year 2000. They were having an executive meeting. And then afterwards, one of the executives said, are you familiar with our 3Ds from our CEO? data-driven decisions. And, if you're in the
Sure.
Intel building, yeah, of course I'm familiar with this. I didn't work for Intel, but I was their contractor. Yes, I know this. And he says, if Intel did what you're doing and just raised the price, we wouldn't be selling stuff. We have to make stuff better, faster, and cheaper every single year.
That's Moore's Law.
Now, why can't you do that in the cafeteria? We have a 99-cent menu. Figure out how to keep it.
Yes.
And make it cheaper. I want an 88-cent menu.
Yes.
And I said, what do you want me to do? Cut a chunk out of the burger?
Yes.
I don't care what you do to the burgers.
Yes.
So does that concept just stop at and I'm not picking out, let's say, Intel or anything. I'm just saying, isn't it sort of our culture?
We've lost sight that the end goal is health and wellness. Right? And one of the challenges we're going to be faced with as RFK Jr. does what he's going to do, artificial dyes, sugar, seed oils, we'll have to delve deeper into that. If you were to just take all these products out, that grocery store would lose 90% of their SKUs, right? We have to take into account that this change cannot happen overnight, can it?
Can the change happen overnight? And does he have a cape around his neck? No, really, you ask yourself that. So when you look at us in corporate America or whatever we do at work, right? So I like to think that I like to say super strengths, since I mentioned capes, or one of my skills, what I bring to the table is I think I have the ability to take complex issues and break them down into bite size, or, let's touch a little Six Sigma into here, right? If we really want to get geeky, but we might put most of your listeners to sleep. So let's not use all that terminology. But he can't do this alone. And he is the subject matter expert in all the answers. So the one thing I have learned over the years, even if I think I know everything and have all the answers about anything, a kitchen, designing a kitchen, I don't. The solutions come from the people closest to the issues, the problems, whatever it is. Yeah. And then it also helps with buy-in when you're making big change. So if you think about this, yes, if, RFK can do what RFK can do, but can he do it? No, he can't do it. It takes all of us, right? If you wanted to say, and I'll quote you, it takes an army, right? And you said the national, and I say the personal. So if he were to, in my humble opinion, take people, cross sectors, cross divisions of different people that, maybe have been overweight and have overcome it, people that have never been overweight, people that are currently overweight,
right,
and built these dynamic teams to address, yes, I do believe training is part of the solution. Education. We'll talk about training in a second. But if he built these teams, and whether, whatever the structure is for project management, this is no different than a challenge at work, a national challenge at work. I covered the nation. Okay, let's break this up into project pieces, and let's put toll gates, touch points, and, and process leaders and teams and, timelines. And at least then we kind of know where we're going. And so, and, fun events. And you break this up in a very geeky, traditional work-like process. And, because you cannot change a system. You cannot change a system because a system is made up of multiple process steps. A system never stops, and I'm not trying to, go below you on this, but a system never has a beginning and an end, and it's made up of a bunch of process steps, and a process has a beginning and an end, and you can impact, change, stop, delete a process. And when you start modifying all the processes, now you slowly start changing the system. In the old days, I hate to say that, it sounds like my dad, You can't eat, or how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Okay, that's pretty corny, but it's real. Because, I'm saying, how do you eat? Get it? Eat, health, elephant, meat, protein. Anyway, yeah, so, it's got to be done one bite at a time, small little pieces. And whether, like, I don't know much about the regulation part, but I do know you should be able to trust when you go in the store. I know the final outcome. I mean, that was a lot to digest that I just said, but when you talk about the education, we need, how is education? And I believe that, when you look at training, how training is set up, short. Nobody wants to watch something long, learn something long, but our medical people, our doctors, they don't know. I'm not saying they don't know, but they're not trained in nutrition. Look at our dietitians. Our dietitians don't know this. They're trained on what we train them.
Yes.
And when you look at all this, so the things have to be short, bite-sized, simple. We'll talk about child nutrition in a second. But so train the trainer format, not just for, we need to give the responsibility to our doctor and dietitians. No. What about for a parent?
Right. What are we feeding our children?
Yeah.
Diabetic children. It's a thing.
But not only just the diabetic child. What about just the normal child, the infant child, the teenage child, the entire step? Right. It needs to be addressed all the way along and train the trainer format.
Where do you start?
Oh, that's what I said. It's that system. It doesn't end. So you just start hitting little pieces along the way. And you got to have the answers, and then you start turning that into training with the cross-functional teams that start addressing these things. And that's about education and training. Not even talking about legislation and companies, but I will tell you this, and we'll come back to child nutrition in 1 second. If you really want to make a change with, and we'll do something simple with red dye. And it doesn't happen overnight, but if all of a sudden consumers stopped buying items with red dye in it,
right,
wouldn't manufacturers quit using it?
Yes.
I mean, so you can go about that one of two ways. Like, and like if you go, where am I getting the information today? I mean, I've learned so much in the last year that kind of makes me angry, what I've learned in the last year on the internet. I mean, I call it Reels, you call it TikTok, whatever. But, you can get ice cream sandwiches that don't melt.
Right.
And so would I ever buy those again? No.
Right.
There's a certain type of cookie that you can put a flame to and won't burn.
Yeah. This is not food.
It's not food at all. So I'm learning this stuff on the internet, and I hate to say it, they say, people use Facebook, but, and then when you go on Facebook and you have all these experts, some I love, some like, but at the end of a lot of them, what are they trying to do? Sell me something.
It's always a commercial at the end.
It's always learn this, so like, here's a good one, and we'll come back to the fun stuff. So I'm sitting there the other day and I'm watching this, bottled water. It's making me fatter. Yes. How is this? So I'm reading, and the plastics, and I'm like, this sounds interesting. Maybe the plastic is leaching out of the plastic into my system. This makes sense. And at the end, they start talking about, we need to add more hydrogen to water.
Yes.
And then they want to sell me a pill. And I'm breaking out my wallet saying, I need to buy this pill right now. I need to go and get me some hydrogen pills to add to my water.
Right.
And then I sit there and I think for one moment, and I said, maybe I should Google and check this. And then I'm saying to myself, what is water? H2O.
Yes.
And I'm thinking back, wasn't the H2 like 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen?
Yes.
Maybe I'm off on this. What do you think? I don't know the answer anymore.
There are thousands of studies that have been done on hydrogen infusion in water. And I'm afraid to tell you, there are some studies that indicate it's a good thing. But like you, it blows my mind. I don't understand it. And then I think to myself, because I drink a lot of carbonated water, So I'm consuming carbon dioxide in my carbonated water, and so that freaks me out. Do I have a negative impact from consuming carbonated water? It's and doctors do not have formalized nutrition curriculum in their education. It's not done. They have a day, they have a week, they have a month. That's it. Doctors are taught to prescribe pills and to conduct surgery. God bless them. That's what they do. And we're left to wander in the wilderness of the internet in search of answers that we can only hope to find.
Well, the other day I was at my mom's house and we were getting a new internet service, and Robin and we couldn't figure it out. We got 3 remote controls. My mom's sitting there and she's a little older than I am, and we got the internet guy, and he's looking at it, and he's like, one remote turns it on, one turns it off, and this is the one. I'm like, let's just go buy a new TV.
Yeah. Yes.
So the only other answer would be is if I had a child that was under 15.
Yes.
I would know who my SME, my subject matter expert was
Yes.
for my internet technology issues, right?
But before we get to the kids, childhood.
Well,
nutrition.
no, we're not talking about kids yet, but I'm saying I would know who to go to for my technology issues.
Yes.
But when I look at any product in the grocery store and I turn it around,
Right.
and
Yes.
I look at it and I look at all those words and little lines and numbers, and it's like food like,
Paragraphs.
and I don't even know what that means. And who can you really go to say, what does this mean?
Right.
That it's cheese-like, that cheese doesn't melt
Right.
at 500,000 degrees in my oven. Or, and I'm being
Yes.
sarcastic on that, but there is cheese that does not melt in the oven.
Yes.
And that doesn't make good grilled cheese, y'all. And so, but who do you even go to? Yes, we know the basics. It's this many portions, this many calories. But what about that other stuff? It's flavored or food-like or GMO, or I don't even know what these words mean anymore. I mean, and is it just intentional to confuse the you-know-what out of me?
Right.
So it would have been a lot easier to find me a 10-year-old to fix my mom's internet issue with 3 remote controls, one to turn it on, one to turn it off, and one to change a channel, than it would be to figure out what's on the back of the box of microwave popcorn.
Yes.
And microwave popcorn is terrible for you.
Yes.
And when you read the box, it looks good because it says it's healthy, and the microwave stuff is bad for you no matter what no matter what you put in there. The microwave stuff is not good for you, right?
Hallelujah. Everyone knows how I feel about the microwave.
I know, that's why I brought that one up in general. But when you read a microwave box of popcorn, that's not good for me. Boom.
But the food is optimized around profit, right? And that necessitates food manufacturers to optimize that food around taste and smell, and the third evil, addiction. They want us to eat more of it, right? And they want us to continue to eat it. Which obviously has led us to where we are today.
Who taught them that, though?
Well, companies.
But I mean,
There's a lot of. I'm not gonna get into conspiracy theories, but
okay, I won't
facts
get
are
into
facts,
conspiracy
right?
theory.
This is what we have. This is where we're at. You can't deny where we came from. This is where we're at, right? So that being said, because water under the bridge, we're moving on.
All right, we'll keep moving.
But how do you not? But we're caught up. At the end of the day, the consumer is still going to make their own choices. Consumers like microwave popcorn. Consumers like the cheesy macaroni. Consumers like the burritos and the energy drinks and such. And if we take those away from them all of a sudden, you can't wave your magic wand and do it, but even if you were to try to take those away from them, they're going to find alternatives. Consumers are going to do what consumers are going to do. This goes back to the education component. How do we educate folks that there are reasonable alternatives to these choices? And how long is this going to take? This isn't going to be a 2-year process, not a 4-year process. How long is that? How long is that going to take?
Well, I mean, I think we definitely have the education piece. And part of that, I mean, and I hope that somebody in government, everybody in government can really work across the aisle here on this. And I don't care what label you use to identify yourself. We've talked about this truth and labeling and all this stuff and words that the common person should be able to understand. And they shouldn't be able to say this is healthy. But if you knew what was going on in that bag of microwave popcorn, you might not do it. If you knew what was going on in some of those protein healthy drinks you just referenced, you might not give that to your parent, your mom,
Or
when
your
she just
4-year-old.
came out of surgery or something,
Yes.
right? And if you knew that some of the sports drinks used to have 4 ingredients, now they have 17,
Yes.
you might not be consuming them, but you cannot tell what it means on the back of the label.
No.
And so right now they can write with anything they want on those labels, regardless of the education. We're never going to learn to understand what all those letters and those long words mean.
Right.
So there probably needs to be across the aisle agreement on some standardization on what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say, and how you really identify what something is so that a normal consumer can identify whether this is good or bad.
Yes.
And that will start to take care of itself if we can get that ball moving. And then we can start talking about all the regular education that's moving forward in the other direction. Like, what should a regular diet look like? Like, should you have breakfast? Should you have 5 meals? Should I be doing fasting? Should I be doing the keto diet? Or what about this? Have you heard of the carnivore diet?
Yes.
Ooh, I heard of this carnivore diet. Have you heard of this MCT oil, that if you just drink a little bit of that?
No. I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's a great oil. It just puts you right in like ketosis, I heard. Do you know that I actually start each day with a little shot with some lemon juice, olive oil, with some cayenne pepper and ginger?
I've heard of this.
And yeah, and
That's a thing.
yeah, I try to do that each day because I told you I'm still, boom, fighting it.
Yes.
And you look at what we know and what we don't know, and what's healthy and what's not healthy, and what's marketing, and the consumer drives what's sold. Like, when you look at, when I've set up salad bars in the past, why would I put bacon bits on salad bars? Because people demanded it.
That's what people want.
But
Yes.
I never made anything with chia seeds to sell it. I Googled before I came over here, and maybe I missed it, restaurants that serve items with chia seeds, and I don't mean a little sprinkle.
Right.
But, here, I'm a food service person, and historically, I never ate chia seeds. I never made chia seed pudding,
Yeah, that's a thing.
chia seed,
Yep.
anything. You can make wonderful, and that's, theoretically, you can read, that's really good for you, the chia seed.
Yes.
And it tastes good, too.
Yes. That used to be a Christmas toy for us.
Because you would grow it
Yes.
into something. Yeah.
Yes.
They have a good tiramisu chia seed recipe, by
Yes.
the way.
We used to use kale to decorate the salad bar. We didn't eat it.
You never ate kale. It was the greatest decoration.
Yes.
Yes. It was a great decoration until you weren't allowed to use it to decorate.
So now you've developed education programs, AI education programs,
Yes,
soup to nuts. How would you, from an education standpoint, just broad strokes, how would you approach this problem?
Well, when you look at education, and, reading is the least way that people comprehend, and just watching a video, believe it or not, people don't comprehend that much off of that either. The best way is when you teach it to someone else, or you participate in group conversations.
Yes.
So I would, if I was in charge for the day, I would try to put something like this back into our school systems, first of all. And I'm not saying a whole class, but a section of a class. And it would address the needs of the ages of the class, whether it was kindergarten-ish or middle school or high school. And there would be some education in there. And then I would give the information to parents in ways that they could teach other people. So in the schools, I would have engagement activities with children based on the age levels. And I would try to put every single thing in this is how you train or teach or educate, whatever word you want to use, your child, your whomever.
Start in the schools.
I would start in the schools, and I would start with the parents. Which one first? I don't know. But, is it the school responsibility? And if you do one and not the other, it's useless. They got to be both. So, like here in Nashville or in Tennessee, when you have a child, and I'm not trying to get a political thing again here, but you sign up and you get a free book for years from the Dolly Parton program. I don't know if you know that.
Right.
But
yes.
And
yes.
so
Childhood literacy.
Yes.
Yes.
So why aren't we doing something like that with education to the parents? And giving the information to teach your children, because you're also teaching the parent. And this kind of approach, school, parents, because some people will say it's not the school's responsibility, and we can talk about child nutrition, the program, but when you look at that, man, write it in a way that a normal person can even understand it if you've ever looked at it.
Right.
And it seems like the only thing you want to do is pass the audit to justify getting compensation for like the milk program, whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't matter if it's a pasteurized chicken patty. I mean, as long as you're getting so many portions of vegetables, which can come right out of a can and have whatever, or fruit out of a can or whatever, and it's great that we're feeding people. I'm not saying it's a bad program to feed people. It is wonderful. People are getting food. But let's make it a little more wholesome. And with that could be education as well. What would be wrong with having some posters or signs in the schools? There's multiple answers, but back to that cross-functional team, we could have some people that do school lunches, teachers, parents involved with, okay, how do we do this? What's the best way? That's that cross-functional. To think that I have the answers of how to reach that, I don't know. But, the elementary, the middle, the high school, it's a different answer for each different set. And a little more home cooking. Yeah, it's going to cost a little more, but it's going to cost a whole lot less for our health care when people are older. When you look at diabetes.
We've talked about health insurance, yes.
Look at that.
Now, at the risk of stepping on some toes.
Don't step on toes.
Right? That's what we're supposed to do, isn't it?
Right.
We're about to wind down the Department of Education. We're in the process of winding down the Department of Education. So if we're pushing nutrition education now if we're depending upon schools to enact, nutrition education programs, and we don't have a federal agency to be able, in which, of course, I know this has been done in the past, varying degrees of success. We're going to be relying upon state and local school programs to be able to do this. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm just going to say from a political point of view, I don't know.
Right.
But is it a bad thing not to do it? Yes. Is it a bad thing not to teach it? Yes. Where does the school lunch money come from?
Right.
And so where does that money come from? So should it be part of the funding for that? Yes, sure. Should the food be a little more nutritious? Yes, sure. Should there be some education tied into it? Yes, sure. Are people profiting off of that whole program? Maybe a little. Yeah. So, that's why I said you have to have the cross-functional teams, and maybe it doesn't come from the federal program, but the information. And, who would have issue with the information and the programs coming from somebody that's creating the training programs and you implement it in your state, Nobody's saying statewide testing. I didn't say full classes. I didn't say a teacher. I just said that we teach it somehow or another. And I said you involve people how to create it. Posters, whatever. I'm not saying create the pyramid posters. I'm saying involve the parents. I don't have the answers. I just know there's a need. And I know the current program has got so, like you have to buy locally sourced and this, and you have to show their procurement. How much time and energy spent on the audit, because you get audited at each location to justify your funding in the current program. And you can serve literally, chicken patties and that kind of stuff. And, do the kids really like the food? I don't know if they do or don't, but they like food versus no food, right?
Right.
That's better than nothing. I definitely would rather have a chicken patty than nothing. And I'm not saying you go from one extreme to the other, but every little step towards the other direction is one step better, right? Like you can't, in today's environment, remember the system, we can't change the whole system, but we can change one little thing at a time.
Right.
And maybe it's just some educational pieces or adding something or suggesting to textbooks, or to classrooms or something, what do the educators say?
Well, this goes back to, as you reminded us before, that this we all have a role to play. This is going to take an army. It's not going to be done by Washington. It's going to be done by if we expect something to change, it's going to have to be done by every one of us.
Yes. And like how many teachers would want to know this, and you can go from teachers to corporate America. Do you know, like in corporate America, I was creating training on health and wellness, right? Oh, and I opened the topic up. And this was the most exciting group of trainings to create. I had more people raise the hand and say, John, I want to help write something.
Wow.
And you didn't have to be a doctor to give tips. And some of them were like, ooh, I got a little nervous at first. Ooh, HR, how do you deal with someone that's grieving? How do you deal when you're grieving when you lost a loved one? Or, how do you deal with stress? And how do you deal with this? And it was all just meant to give tips, advice, to inspire you to do a little more research or seek professional help. And the line of people that wanted to help and create this area was unbelievable. And people felt, this is unbelievable that the company cares about me, because they're teaching me or giving me information on, whether you believe this or not, breathing, especially in food service. I'm so stressed out. I got to get lunch, and the chicken patty's 86th and the truck hasn't shown up, and I'm short 3 people, and I'm very, very stressed. How do I relax? How do I deal with conflict at work? Stress.
Food service is a difficult business.
Oh, it's so difficult. But then you think about food service or any service, any company. Think about those road warriors.
Right.
Remember, you said I worked at ExxonMobil on the run, helping create that concept in Charlotte, North Carolina. And my job was to get people to come into the store and buy fast, fresh, and friendly. Right. Build a salad on your bun. Right. That was our thing, and I loved it. It was good.
Build a salad on your bun.
Yeah. Because you go to the topping bar and put lettuce, tomato on the top of your hamburger.
Well, that sounds wonderful.
Oh, in the picture, you should have seen that lettuce.
Did folks do it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's great.
And you had the Green Mountain coffee. You still see the stuff. Now, Exxon eventually got at all that, but, we won't talk about all that. So anyway, but you look at these road warriors.
Yeah.
And if we as companies and HR departments challenged ourselves, how do we help our road warriors, I know we like to manage our expense reports and how much you spent at Starbucks and coffee and lunch. Bernie, why didn't you eat breakfast at the hotel? It's free.
Yes.
Well, what do you get at the hotel breakfast, John? Well, you can get coffee mate. You can get oatmeal. Oats are a lot of times used to fatten horses. I don't know. Oatmeal. You can get the pre-made sausage patty, an omelet, French toast, peanut butter, and white bread slices. That's in my hotel lobby. Yes, it's free though. Why are you buying stuff?
Yeah.
Why don't you go out for lunch?
Right.
You need to be from here to there. Why aren't you eating at McDonald's? And so, or fast food, or going to convenience stores. And, if we teach people almost any food you can get, and listen, I love convenience stores. The people in there work really, really, really hard, and it serves a purpose. Okay. First of all, I love them. I mean, I'm not saying anything about anybody or any company, but we don't have enough healthier options in there. I'm not saying there are none, but the temptation of the donut. Ooh, I love me a donut, right?
Love those donuts.
And so, when you tell people, if you're going to get it through the window in your car, more than likely it's not going to be healthy. Or if you're going to pull over and get food while you're getting gas, it's not going to be healthy. So, what other ways can you eat healthy when you're on the road?
Right.
Whether it's getting food from the grocery store and finding some way to heat it up in your room. I don't know.
If only you had a way to heat it up in your room.
And keep it hot for a long period of time in the car.
Oh, my goodness. If you had that.
I don't know what you would do, right? So, anyway, and then talk about when, you can't, like, I'm not going to say you can't, but I'm not even saying cut fast food completely out.
Is this an education problem? Are we talking to an education problem?
Yeah, but it's a caring thing. It's an engagement thing. It's changing the way we view our people and what we're training them. It's not a check requirement. But if we were to teach our road warriors, if you go to the fast food, order your condiments on the side, cut all that salt out. It's a different approach to our people.
Sure.
And you think about that, and now maybe when you start really challenging our HR and our top operators to say, hey, let's go down this road and see what impact it has for engagement, recruiting, retention, overtime, whatever it is. Now we have a different world, and now they're training, because everything's train the trainer, how to be healthier. And I said cross-functional teams. What goes in our break room? Right. Our cafeteria. You think about our break room, whether you have the traditional vending machine,
yes,
or you have the micro market, the micro market self-serve. If you don't know, you walk in, you get selections, and you go and you heat it up, right? And we talked about the hot logic, and that's a lot healthier than a microwave, right? So when you talk about the selections in our micro market, our cafes, whatever it is you have, don't stop there. Bernie, you have catering, you have all that stuff. Is pizza always the answer? It's the easy answer.
Yes.
But you start treating things a little bit differently. And now all of a sudden the company has a different view of the people. And it's not just words. It's I really, really care about you and your health.
You've worked with some large organizations.
A few,
the largest
yes.
in the world, right? Fortune 500 all the way across the board.
Yep.
Have the and this is going across 30, 40 years you've been working in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
How many of these organizations were actively talking about the impact on health of these food systems for their employees or for their customers?
Not a whole lot. I mean, what they thought was the employees want a really nice cafeteria. And I can name a lot of companies that I've done the food for in their cafeterias, from, like I told you, the Exxon, UPS, Intel. I mean, I can go on, Kimberly-Clark. I mean, I can keep going.
Right.
And I did a lot of the, even Enron. Ooh, Enron. That was a good one. And that computer company down there in Austin, in Red Rock. And And, you'd set up these cafes and, and they would always say, got to have a salad bar, got to have a healthy option.
Yes.
It was a requirement. You got to have a healthy option.
Yes.
But once again, when I was slightly overweight by a couple 100 pounds, was I eating a salad bar? No. I'm addicted. So it's a circle again, right? I want the burger and the French fries. I ordered, did I order So Healthy last night at dinner? No, I should have.
I thought you did pretty well.
I did okay, but I should have ordered something else. I mean, you ordered salad instead of French fries. But,
But I did get the burger.
You did get the burger
Burger and salad.
It's not terrible.
Trying
so
to
it's middle of the
balance.
road. Right, it's balanced. But when you go in there, how many people get the stuff from the grill every single day? So it's the education and the offerings, right? Because you got to balance it. But the more we educate, nobody ever wants to do the education part. You know, like we bring in guest chefs in these cafes. Oh, here's chef whatever doing this fancy thing. But it's the education part, right? We don't spend the time to educate a little bit. And where did that education begin? It began in elementary school. So you're right. This is a long time cycle, but everybody has a role in it. So if the companies were to say, hey, let's get some people, let's form a committee, let's talk about wellness. And wellness is, you know, it's the medical part, it's the what you eat, and it's the mental part. Wellness is, those three parts in my view. And so how does a company help with wellness, the overall good? Because the wellness, the soundness of wellness, the better you are, the better you perform, the better your engagement and everything.
Productivity.
There you go. That was a better word, because you see I was stumbling over here, right?
Right. It's all about productivity.
Productivity.
I think corporations will respond to productivity.
Right.
Because if you're slow and you got burger and fries and soda for lunch, you got a food coma at 3 p.m., you're slowing down and you've already had 6 cups of coffee, are you going to be productive? Are you really making a contribution? That's a challenge.
Do you even really care?
Do you even care?
Right. And when you look at waiters or wait staff, right, in restaurants and in casual restaurants, there's no connection between the wait staff and the establishment.
Right.
I mean, you can go into most chain casual restaurants, and if you didn't look at the name of the place on the menu, you don't know where you are.
Right.
They don't even know anything about the menu.
Right.
They don't invest.
They don't eat there.
Often they don't invest in those wait people to say, "Hey, taste the food." Even this is how you describe your food.
Yeah.
Like this is what a burger tastes like.
Well, the restaurant business is a tough business.
It's a
getting
tough
tougher.
business. And I'm challenging to go even a step further, not just to have a pre-meal meeting, to help people say, oh, wow, how can I sell? And I don't care what business we're in, but how could I sell sauteed anything, onions on something, if I don't know what the word saute means?
I've never heard that word before.
Really?
Saute?
Saute,
Saute.
Saute. Yeah,
okay.
What are you, not from the South?
Sorry.
Saute,
From Detroit.
but if you don't know what that means,
Yes.
how could you wouldn't feel comfortable selling that item or braised or whatever it is, And so, and I'm challenging to go a step further, way further out of the comfort zone of today and get the legal department involved to say, we're not expert at this. We're just going to tap into it and say, let's start helping our team with wellness concepts. You know who else would help you with this whole idea? Your insurance companies.
Well, that's a thing now. The health insurance companies, they're not going to pass up an opportunity to raise your rates.
Why?
If your people aren't eating the right foods, right? That is a risk event that, of course, they can identify. We're starting to hear more of that. That's a challenge.
Do you think that if some insurance companies, if the HR department came to them and said, could you help us with some content that we want to start sharing and converting versus just having like, oh, here's a flyer that you can put on the bulletin board?
Which people will ignore.
Are you telling me people don't read bulletin boards?
They don't read bulletin boards.
Are you telling me we don't walk into work and say, hey, Bernie, did you see what was on the bulletin board today?
Yeah, that's not a thing.
You're right. So do you think that insurance companies would help convert some of this or just to help? Would you think they'd be happy at least about it? Or would they mind if you converted their information into a different format, a train the trainer format?
I'd like to think so.
Good.
I know we've had clients that have come to us to tell us that their health insurance organizations have started to suggest that this is going to be an issue. That if you have a chronically ill workforce and you are contributing to that illness by not offering better choices in the break room, right? Better options in the workplace, and all of these things, that they're going to start taking a hard look at those renewals. Because health insurance companies, they like to raise rates. Sorry, this is what it is. So, and that goes back to vending. Vending is an entire industry that has been very challenged by this idea of salty sweet, right? Cravings, snacks, soda, potato chips, candy bars in the break room, all at arm's length, just sitting there waiting for you for that 3 o'clock food coma to start to set in. You're grabbing that candy bar, and the vending business has built an industry around satisfying that need. God bless them. But now, and we have clients, they've taken the candy bars out. They've taken the potato chips out. They've taken those energy drinks out of their break rooms because they know these aren't really a great thing to have all the time. I enjoy all those things, but having access to it all day, every day, maybe that's not a great thing. I don't know where that's headed.
Well, I mean, there's got to be, when you start looking at it, when you go down those aisles in the grocery store and you start doing some research, there are, and the companies will listen to the consumers over time.
Yes.
It's that circle again, and you start looking at, let's say, protein bars. So there's different kind of protein bars out there, and they're not all created equal.
No.
So, like, I don't know, am I allowed to say name brands? Like RX Bar, those are pretty good, right? They have 4 ingredients. I probably shouldn't say more name brands. I don't want to get in trouble. But some other ones are just like candy bars.
Right.
So when you start trying to understand the back, and there's apps you can look and that kind of stuff, and it's confusing. We need that education again. But, there are protein bars and stuff like that actually is pretty good for you, And, so they just got to start as we get educated, and the consumers, like, if the company wants to make healthier choices, are there healthier drinks? Like, recently I started drinking some kombucha stuff with ginger flavor. And I said, I don't think I like that kombucha tea stuff. That is terrible.
It's tough to drink.
But then I got the ginger flavor one. I'm
like, good for you.
That's pretty good, right?
Yes.
I don't know what's in it, but I sure liked it. And then I started trying the kefir milk stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, I like milk. But then
it's an acquired taste.
But then I started drinking the little bottle of it, and I'm like, after a while, it was pretty good.
No, I got to challenge something you've said, something you've suggested.
I don't know.
I do follow the Neo from the Matrix idiom. At the end of the day, it all boils down to choice, right? And consumers do make their choices, and all else being equal, corporations will respond to consumer choice, except in this case, in many cases, what the system has been built to do is incentivize those choices. In other words, it's well known that food companies actually pay for shelf space. Food companies have consolidated a great deal and actually own quite a lot of shelf space in the grocery store and can engineer these. The reason why you have a small and a medium and a large at McDonald's is because they want to sell the mediums. And if they offer you a small, a medium, and a large, people will order the mediums. It's just the way things are. And in the vending business, it's well known that the food companies will rebate according to the product they want to move. And if that product is stocked at that micro market, that's the product that you have to choose from. And so your choice is adulterated, so to speak. You don't really have choice, in other words. Given the choice between 2 bad options, you're going to choose one of the bad options, in other words. And this is an exaggeration, of course. But in this case, it's not always choice.
Well, right now, I mean, first of all, the labels, and I'll give an easy example. When you look at olive oil, you don't always know how many countries the olives came from,
Yes.
because there's like sometimes like imprints in the plastic, or should plastic's worse than glass or whatever. I mean,
Yes.
that's really, really complicated, right? So maybe some, and I don't mean just olive oil, but the standardization of some of the identifiers or the package labeling, so we know what it means, and the education, so I can make an educated decision, first of all. And that doesn't happen over time. And then, maybe the vendor should help us a little bit. And you're right. Everything's about a planogram, right? Because it is all about cheaper, faster, better, faster, cheaper, making more money. And every single thing, whether it's a vending machine, micro market, grocery store, is a planogram. And that's made to studies to make you buy more money. Even in the convenience stores, we would study the people and say, okay, the door opens to make you take one more step into the store, because we want you more into the store,
Yes.
more into the store, more into the
That's why
store.
the milk is in the back.
And so, like in those days, you had less loyalty to bottled water, and you bought that by price.
Yes.
So into where things went. And so, you got to make a decision, and you can always talk to, if someone's doing your micro market or vending or whatever, hey, can we put the healthier things a little more? You can make requests, and you can do all kinds of stuff. And I don't have an answer, but once again, that cross-functional team that you start building, and we own our own health, whether it's in a company or whatever, for the solutions. But when you start looking at that and you say, oh, but right now, if I put out the healthy protein bar, nobody would buy it.
Correct.
And if I put out kefir milk, I wouldn't have bought that stuff before.
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, it's some crazy stuff that's good for you, right? But, and if I put out kombucha before, I would never have bought it. Right? But now that I know a little bit more, I might buy that now. But you know what else? And I hate to say this, but a lot of the healthier foods cost more money.
Correct. Well, so they sell at lower volume. So
yes. And that's a sadness. So it's that whole circle. Once again, it's the knowledge, the training, the delivery to the public, by the public, for the public, and then whatever our government is going to do to help us understand with whatever the regulations are and all that crazy stuff that needs to happen up there, that I wish we would just start seeing, okay, I don't want to talk the politics stuff, but let's just put our food health, which nobody should be able to disagree with, unless you're making the money, right? Unless you have a lobbyist.
Correct.
Unless all these other things. Put the money aside and let's just think. Remember what I said earlier when you asked me what's my motivation? I said I close my eyes and I look up, and there are my daughters looking down at me. And now look down and you see your daughters or your children or whomever. And now you work across the aisle and we get things done for the health of the country. It's sad to see that our country has allowed certain things like the dyes, and you go to other countries and, certain snacks are bright red here and less bright in other countries, or our Coca-Cola has weird sugar in it compared to Mexico. And you compare the additives we have here to other countries, and you would think
the glutens, the
glutens, all this stuff, you would think that we would be superior. We're Americans. No, sir. No, sir. And these are the things I've been learning more and more and more recently that I just took for granted.
Yeah.
That it was just, of course we're better. Of course we're better. I don't need this organic stuff. That's silly. That's just cost more.
Right.
That's a gimmick to make me spend more money and go to the fancy grocery store. Everything they sell me's got to be good. Who would have thought that there was chemicals on my cantaloupe or my corn?
That's against the law.
Yes. My government protects me.
Yes. That's
over every president,
yes.
every side, Republican, Democrat, over the years, we've all allowed it.
Yes, 100%.
Now let's all fix it.
Yeah. So going back for a minute to restaurants.
Let's do it.
To vending.
But
something that I find that these businesses, and many small businesses struggle today for many reasons. But I suggested before, the restaurant business has become more difficult, not easier. Costs and labor and inputs and so on and so forth. The vending business is a restaurant business in some respects. It's become more difficult. The food service business, more difficult, faster. As you said, they want it faster. They want it cheaper. Consumers want what they want, right? And if you can't give them what they want, they get upset, right? So yes, there's an education component to this, to be sure. That's going to take decades, right? I'm from Detroit. We had an expression, General Motors, I think, coined this expression. We have to grow our customers, right? We have to get to the kids that someday will buy the Cadillacs, right? But that took decades. And so we've now started a decades-long process to educate consumers, to help them make better choices. But in the meantime, the purveyors of these foods, the restaurants, the food service, the vending operators, they're going to struggle because they have to give people what they want. But at the same time, the choices that people make are actually killing them. And that's a true statement in many cases. I'll even make that statement. What are operators to do? What are restaurants to do? What choice do they have? They got to survive.
Well, I'm not saying that there's a simple solution to this, but I think the fact that we're talking about it is a step in the right direction.
Yes.
And I think for the last several years, and maybe it doesn't mean quite what we're saying, but we talk about sustainability and this, and that's for the environment. And, all this sustainability generally means for the environment or locally sourced. Your thinking's a little bit better, a little better, the local cow and all that. But it starts with one. And I think the movement's already started. I think I'm late to the table, right? I'm late. I'm late, but
But you're in your prime now.
I'm in my prime now. Maybe I can help make a difference. I would like to help others make a difference here, right? I want to help others. And, you have two kinds of groups out there. You have chains, organizations, and you have independent people. And they both need different kinds of help because it's harder for the independent because they don't have the, the purchasing power unless they're part of GPOs and stuff. But, the consumer, we got to get educated, and you got to know. But, if the consumer doesn't see the value in a better meat, but you look, there's one fast food place, and the name has slipped my mind, and I'm sad I can't remember it right at the top of my head, and that just switched to tallow oil.
Yes.
And I don't want to guess because
we don't want to get that one wrong, but yes.
Yes, they just switched to tallow oil.
God
and it's really, really good tallow oil.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Okay.
It's great for their fries, I think in the old days, our fries had 3 ingredients, now they have, in some places, they had 17 ingredients. And so that's a huge step in the right direction. We're using tallow oil, which is beef-based oil, just oil. And they moved away from the vegetable oil to fry their fries. And that's a great step. But when you look at their fries that they're putting into the oil, they haven't gotten there yet. The fries have still lots of other ingredients. They're coated in oil to keep them hot longer and seasoning. But just the fact that they switched to tallow oil and people are talking about it, that's a huge step in the right direction.
I looked it up. It's Smashburger.
Is it Smashburger?
Right. Kudos to them.
Okay, that's good.
According to the internet.
Okay, I thought it was someone else, but Smashburger did it. Maybe more than one. But
I'm sure there's others.
So every step, because I'm sure people are saying, what's tallow oil? What's this? Because my daughter's like, what's tallow? Right. She Googled it or whatever they did, but, they never heard of it. My sister's a little older, and she actually, had dietary degrees, and she's like, I don't believe it.
I wonder, I'm looking for, do you imagine that there will ever come a day when our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will say, what is seed oil? Can you imagine that? Or if we can come full circle.
Or they what?
Right. So we talked about education, talked about schools. We talked about we talked about restaurants, training in restaurants. But going to food service and dining, How do they? What can they do? Right? They have a role to play in all this. What can they do to their current operations? How they source product, how they serve product, how they train? What's their role in this?
I think once again, if they can start educating their customer base and telling them, hey, our special is
And corporate dining.
in corporate, you're talking about feeding in
Yeah.
like an office building
Yeah.
or anything. Colleges, we're talking about contracted
Sure.
feeding.
Yep.
So that
Universities.
could be universities, K through 12, obviously, and healthcare and corporate dining and any type of food service. When you look at, they're running specials every single week on their hotlines, their grills, their salad bars, and a lot of them do this. I mean, there's the big three, but the big three companies, Aramark, Compass, and Sodexo, and I think they do a good job. But everybody could always do better, and they could focus more on the health.
But they can only take it so far as their client allows them to.
But they need to educate the client, right? And educate it, and maybe it's the price, and they start pushing, and then, but it's also the smaller companies and the self-operated ones, the ones that don't outsource it. And when you look at all the institutional feeding, to say, hey, and it becomes more culturally accepted or unaccepted to order pizza at a lunch.
Right.
Like when you go to a trade show, like, you mentioned the NAMA show, that's the vending and micro market show, I mean, what are people going to eat there? Oh, we're going to eat chips and junk food. I mean, that's all we eat. That's acceptable. So, the more we educate the consumer, I don't care what sector we're in, educating the consumer, that's how consumers learn about stuff. Hey, like if all of a sudden next month, if anybody's listening, your listeners that have the ability to write a special promotion for next month's menu cycle, try something with chia seeds.
Right.
You're going to see that.
You like them, chia seeds?
Yeah. Well, it's just, they're simple. It's
and kefir milk.
Yeah, well, let's not do the kefir milk. Let's not go too crazy yet. But let's just do the chia seeds. They're inexpensive. You can stretch them out with regular milk if you needed to, but find some sort of recipe. Make yourself a nice chia seed pudding, or if you're already doing overnight oats and you're selling that in your micro market.
Well, as a professional chef, this is second nature to you, but do these organizations have the chefs that can make, obviously you have to deliver something that's tasty.
Yeah,
right?
They can do it. I mean, most can, some can't. But I mean, in the micro market, you have the ability in many that you have fresh made salads, sandwiches, and that stuff, or they're buying it all through pre-made. Some of them buy locally sourced, fresh made. Some of them have commissary setups and they make it fresh and distribute to their own places. Like they'll have one kitchen where they have a cafeteria or a cafe, and then they have a micro market in another building or somewhere else in a large building. It's, across the board. It just depends on where you are and what's going on. So I'm just saying, if you have that ability, I challenge you to try something with chia seeds. See how it goes. Put up a little sign. Google the benefits of chia seeds. Talk to your distributor. See if they have them. Look at the price. And then factor out when they swell up how much it actually costs you, your portion size after they absorb the moisture. You're going to be shocked. And when you see the excitement your consumer has for it, and I don't care if it's in your cafe, your cafeteria, your micro market in a cup. I mean, if you're making cups, with anything in it, with cake, pudding, whatever, you can definitely do a chia thing, especially if you're doing overnight oats. So challenge. And if you are buying all pre-made products for your micro markets or any of these areas, challenge your distributor. Say, hey, we want something with chia seeds in it. Find it for us. We want to just try it. That's how it starts.
Yeah. As I think about the various channels, taken into account fast food, delivery, corporate dining, all these channels by which food is delivered into the enterprise, right? Even into consumers, restaurants, hotels, and such, bars. The one I see in my mind that will be the most challenging is unattended retail, is the vending market. How do you educate an unattended retail? There's no body at that micro market. It's just a rack of food or a refrigerator full of drinks. Folks, and in a vacuum, right? In that case, folks are going to do what folks are going to do.
Right.
And they're going to make the selections that of course are driven by their addictions, desires, wants, needs. Is there anything the vending operators can do?
Okay, so there's lots of different ways you introduce something new. So if you have the ability to have a person be there for a couple hours and they give out samples.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, let's say you can do that and they can tell about it.
Right.
And in little souffle little cups. And so they tell about it and then you have some for sale. Another way to do it is, and this is a less impactful way, is you get a poster or sign or something, and you put it on the wall, introducing chia seeds,
right,
pudding or something. A lot of times in these vending micro markets, you have the ability to communicate if it's in a corporate environment, not open to the public. Open to the public, micro market's different than the micro market where it's,
sure,
the same people. So you have the ability to put up your menu. You have the ability to maybe send an email to people. You maybe have the ability to have your client or your customer send something or put it to distribute to the building population. It's very unique to each type of situation. But how do they introduce anything new?
Right.
So if they have a new type of pre-made, processed Italian sub, how do they introduce it? Same exact way. I always find to spend the time for an hour or two, doing the samples, and coming soon, a sample. If you do any sort of promotions for holidays, that's a good time to introduce it.
You're on
the
site
fall
to restock
festival.
the market anyway.
Yeah,
you're there.
Spend another hour with the little tray, whatever. Here it is. And it's also a great time to get feedback. How are we doing? Is there anything else you'd like to see? Guest experience and feedback and having a relationship. There's nothing better than that,
Right.
Hey, it is one of our sponsors. How's the Hot Logic working over here?
Right.
Hey, let's take a look at it.
Right.
So boom, there it is.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Educate, John, since we started talking about this, you've been beating the drum of education, and I think I'm on board. I think you sold me. I think it's education, education, education. I think it's going to take time. I think you're very, very clear about that. This is a generational process. We got starting with the children is brilliant, because what are we doing this for? We're doing this for the kids. We should be. And we all obviously have a stake in the game. Not only in our own health, but in our children's health. And who's going to be running the country someday, right? I hope it's a healthy child, right? That'll grow up to run these organizations and this country. So that's important. What did we miss?
I think when you look at stuff and you have to reflect, doing some self-reflection, it's hard to look in the mirror and say, what does my organization, no matter what it is, whether you're a corporation and I say challenged you to start creating some wellness tips. It's easy to figure a way not to do it or to say I already have it. And I challenged you, is your training effective? No matter what you're in, or, whether we're talking about the school, you've mentioned RFK.
Yeah.
If he were to look in the mirror and say, okay, what do I need to do differently? And sometimes, well, not going to say sometimes, whether it's a micro market all the time, whether you're, politics, school, government agency, you got to have a fresh eye approach.
Yes.
And whether you got to bring someone in to say, hey, take a look at my fill in the blank and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And how can, what do you see? Do you see opportunities for me? And it is I do like to use this quote, that, and you're going to know because I said it yesterday, but, we didn't create the light bulb by making candles better.
Right.
And so the fresh eye approach, that's innovation.
I've not heard that one before.
Oh, I thought I said it yesterday,
no.
but that is true, right?
Wow.
I mean, we did not create the light bulb by improving candles. And so, but that fresh eye approach, because we get complacent, we get so complacent, and that's the number one. I don't care what we're talking about, complacency, whether it's physical safety, at work, people slip, trips, falls. It's safety complacency, food cost complacency, health complacency, even if, you go through your son's or have someone go through your own refrigerator and say, hey, did you know this is here? Or your corporation, that fresh eye approach is a great thing. And it's hard to say, hey, take a look at my health, my training program, my education, our plan for our national programs.
Yeah.
I don't know. In the government, I think that, RFK is watching this. So, take a look, fresh eye approach and say, okay, what is it you need to do differently? Because like I said, you're not wearing the cape. You can't do it alone. You can't do it with all the similar type people, all the politicians. We've gotten nowhere. We need the cross-functional teams. You need to engage others. And it takes sometimes 100 silly ideas to come up with that great idea of the light bulb from the candles.
Yeah, right. It's brilliant. I can't think of a better way to wind up this podcast. Wow. That's awesome. Well, unless you want to add something more?
No, that was the last thing I was going to add.
That was good. Well, on behalf of the Unboxing the Office podcast, John, thank you for your input. On behalf of our sponsors, Hot Logic, American-made alternatives to the microwave. Yes, it's a real thing. Thank you for joining us today. John, thank you for joining the podcast. Amazing.